I'm thinking that I probably might need to watch my own 2 videos, my first 2, just so that I can be refreshed. But also, I think that this is a nice, like, clean-ish YA, fun, adventurous. It's funny. That sounds super confusing. Hopefully you've been following along all of this, because saying all that out loud is like, wow, this is a very convoluted story. Hello and welcome back, and welcome to my channel if you are new here. So a year ago, because it was like Christmas time last year, I started a reading vlog on my channel, and it was supposed to be the first video to kick off what was going to be 2024. I kept calling the year of the series. It turns out that 2024 ended up actually just being a year of a series of unfortunate events. And so I did not do what I had originally intended to do in 2024. Originally the plan was that I was going to read a bunch of series. I have a whole video where I talked about all the series that I wanted to get to, and I was going to do reading vlogs for every single book in those series, more as like a refresher video or like a catch-up video for myself, because I don't always read books in a series back to back. So if there's like a space or a gap in between when I read the books, I may need a refresher. And it also is a way for people who maybe don't feel like going back and rereading themselves, they can go back and refer to these videos. That was the idea. I did do the first book, which was Caraval, and I also did the second book, which was Legendary. Both of those videos are out. Go check those 2 videos out first before you watch this one, because this one will definitely have spoilers in it because it is the 3rd and final book in the series. So with all of that being said, we are back kind of where we started. It's December, it's Christmas time, I'm sick again, like, and here we are back with the Caraval series. So yeah, this is what we're going to be reading. I'm going to be starting this on my iPad because I'm reading this through Libby as an ebook. I have the audiobook on hold, but my hold has not come through yet. I think there's a copy of the audiobook on YouTube, so I'm going to try to listen to that. And I may also acquire a physical copy of this. I haven't decided if I want to buy it or if I want to pick it up from the library, so at some point I'm hoping throughout this video I will acquire a physical copy one way or the other. So yeah, we are going to jump into this reading vlog, try to get some stuff done, and I will check in with you guys once I've read a little bit more of this book. So I have made it to chapter 17, plus I'm like almost 30% into this book, so I feel like now is a good time to probably do a check-in. So a lot has happened, which is another reason why I wanted to do this check-in now, because I feel like if I got any further into the story, it would just be way too much to try to like recap. So I took notes because, like I said, it would have been way too much for me to try to remember all of this. So the book starts off with us getting a flashback to Tella and Scarlett, which I realized, I think someone pointed out, I forget who it was, that I think in the first 2 videos I kept calling her Charlotte and her name is Scarlett. Never even realized that. So I'm going to try to do better with making sure that I call her the right name. Although if you watch other reading vlogs of mine, you know that most of the time I don't remember the characters' names at all, so the fact that I was even close is still like good enough for me. But I will try to get the characters' names right. Legend has freed the Fates, and Tella won the last Caraval game, and so now Legend keeps coming to Tella in her dreams, trying to get her to accept like the prize for winning Caraval. And she is basically being spiteful. She's mad at Legend because after all of that was said and done, he kind of just disappeared and left her, and so she's kind of bitter about that. And so when he comes to her in her dream, she's basically playing like kind of hard to get, where she's like, I don't like you, I don't want to spend time with you, I'm angry at you, when really she just wants him to apologize. He refuses to apologize, and so she won't accept a prize. In addition to the Fates being released, that also means that Tella and Scarlett's mother is released as well, and so they have been taking turns watching over her, because even though she's released, she's like kind of like, I guess, in a coma or something. Like she's like asleep and she like won't wake up. And Tella really wants someone to be there. She wants it to be her, obviously, but if it's her sister, that's fine too. But she wants someone to be there when their mother wakes up. She doesn't want her mother to wake up and be like alone. You also have Legend's coronation is coming up, because at the end of the last book, it was determined that he was going to be like the new emperor that was going to take over. So his coronation is coming up. And so one night when he comes to visit her in her sleep, in her dream, they're like in the middle of having a conversation, and like mid-sentence the dream kind of ends abruptly, and so now she's worried that something is wrong because the way that the dream ended is not normally how the dreams go. There were things that were kind of like unusual about the end of that dream, and so now she wants to go check on him in like real life, in person, not in her dream, to make sure that he's okay. On the same day that Tella wakes up after this really bad dream or whatever, and she needs to go check on him, this is also the same day that Scarlett is finally going to go meet Count Nicholas in person. So Count Nicholas from the first book was the guy that she was supposed to be engaged to, and then it turned out that that whole engagement, one, was a setup by her father, two, the guy that she thought was Nicholas wasn't even actually Nicholas, it was an actor, so that whole thing ended up being a sham. And so now she is finally trying to go meet the guy that she was supposed to have been engaged to all this time. Tella is supposed to go check on Legend, and then she'll come back in time for Scarlett to be able to go make her appointment to meet with Nicholas. Tella finds Legend, she follows him, he goes to meet with this woman named Esmeralda, which is the witch that trapped the Fates in the Deck of Destiny originally, and she is also the person that I guess took half of the Fates' power and gave half of that power to Legend, which is how Dante became Legend and became powerful in the first place, is because of this Esmeralda witch lady. So he goes to visit with her, he tells her, I need more power, I think that the Fates, even though they're not awake and up and running, you know, they're not up and moving around, I think they are still somehow siphoning my power, and so I need more power. She basically is like, no, I can't give you more power, and so she tells him that basically the only thing that he can do is kill the person that I guess created the Fates. And I forget what they called him. He's like the fallen something. Is he the fallen angel or something? He's the fallen something. And she tells him that this person that he has to kill, he's also, I guess, immortal to some extent, but he has a weakness, and his weakness is the same weakness as Legend's weakness. If you kill the person that created the Fates will be ageless, but not immortal, I guess, which at first I was like, well, what is the difference? But apparently, if they are ageless, it means that it's similar to how the characters are in Caraval, like what happened to Julian and Dante in the first book, where when they die during the game, once the game is over, they like come back to life, they respawn. They would have to respond from like the Caraval game, but because they're not in the Caraval game, they don't have a Caraval game to respawn them. Once they die, they're dead, I guess. Hopefully that made sense. It doesn't fully make sense to me all the way, so I don't know if I did a great job of explaining that, but close enough. Now, of course, in learning all of this information, she ends up being late getting back so that Scarlett could leave and go visit Nicholas. And so Scarlett's Uber basically shows up. I think it's like a carriage or whatever. Tella's not back, and so she has the maid, I guess they have a maid or something. She tells the maid like, hey, can you watch my mom while I'm gone? The maid is like, sure. Also, you have a visitor. There's someone downstairs that's here to see you. And so when she goes downstairs to head out to her Uber, obviously she wants to see who is it that came to visit me. And it's Julian, who has returned, and she apparently has not spoken to Julian or had any contact with him in the last 5 weeks or so. So she's very upset with him. She's like, I have somewhere to be. He's like, I'll escort you, which, terrible idea, but he ends up escorting her to go meet with Nicholas. And Nicholas and Julia end up getting into this pissing contest basically. And so Scarlett decides, you know what, we'll just have a competition. I'll have you guys compete, and we'll do like a series of tasks, and whoever completes the most tasks or wins or whatever, that will be who will win my hand in marriage. Now, on their way back from Nicholas's place, they come across this family that's like outside having a feast, but they're like frozen, and they find a note, and it's like this poorly written, poorly rhyming note that basically says that if you want to free this family from whatever this spell is that's over them, that's making them not be able to move, then you have to reveal, or you have to confess your most recent lie. The spell wears off, the people are able to move around again, and they ask them like, hey, like, do you know who did this to you? Nobody in the family can remember who it was, but the letter that gave the explanation of like, you have to confess your last secret thing, it was signed like poison or something, and the poisoner is one of the Fates. It's the name of one of the Fates. So they are thinking that it's possible that one of the Fates did this. In the meantime, Tella finally makes it back home. And when she makes it back home, her mother is awake. And so she is talking to her mom. Oh, I'm so glad that you're awake, blah, 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 blah. Her mom's like, I'm really hungry, like I feel really weak, I think I need something to eat, like can you get me some food? So Tella goes to get her some food, and when she comes back, her mother's gone, and there's a note there that basically says, don't look for me, you guys are in danger, you need to get out of town, and you need to get as far away from the Fates as possible. And even though the note specifically says, don't look for me, don't follow me, Tella, of course being Tella, decides to go after her mother anyway. And so she follows her mom. Her mom goes to meet up with this guy. You see her mom like stab him, which don't really understand the logic yet. Hopefully this will get explained later in the book, because right now it just seems like her mom is an idiot. But with him being a fate and him being immortal, she had to have known that stabbing him wasn't going to actually kill him. But she stabs him, and then he stabs her, and then they both die. But obviously, like I said, he's immortal, so he'll be back. They're both on the ground dead. Tella is like grieving and like losing her mind because she just watched her mother be murdered. And then Jax comes in, and Jax basically carries her away and tries to like make her feel better, and uses like his magic or his powers or whatever to take like her grief away. And when she gets back home, they arrest Tella. Dante / Legend, Scarlett and Julian all come in, and they start basically sharing the information that they have. Scarlett and Julian are telling Legend and Tella about the family that they found that was like, you know, frozen, and the note that they saw, and that they think that the poisoner fate person is involved. And Tella is telling Julian and Scarlett about what she saw when she saw Legend talking to Esmeralda, and also tells them about what happened to their mother, how she was trying to kill that guy and he killed her and they both died or whatever like that. So now everybody's kind of on the same page, and they all agree that they need to kill this fallen angel person guy, because that's the only way that they're going to be able to kill the other fates. But Legend won't tell them what his weakness is in order for them to know how to kill that guy. If you're in a position of power, you don't want to tell people what your weakness is. Nobody goes around advertising what their weakness is. But at the same time, it's like, if we're going to save the world from the fates, then we kind of need to know. So that's kind of where we're at right now, where Tella is like, you need to tell us what it is. And he's just like, no. So that's as far as we've gotten so far. I forgot how like whimsical this book is. Like, a lot of this book is described in like weird ways, seeing sounds and hearing colors. Like, it's very much that kind of book. They mention a couple of times in the second book how much the mother looks like Scarlett, and I remember saying that I suspected, and I don't know if this is in the video or if I cut this part, but I remember thinking to myself that there's probably going to be a moment where there's like a mistaken identity thing, and they think that it's Scarlett and really it's the mom. I'm less than 30% in, and they've already mentioned a couple of times again how much the mother looks like Scarlett. So I'm still waiting for that moment. I feel like if that does not happen in this book, that is such a huge missed opportunity on the author's part. So we'll see. So yeah, that is the update for now. That is our first check-in, our first recap of the first like 27% of this book. And I will check in with you guys once I've read probably another 25 to 30% more. Alright, so we are back, and I am now about 60%. I think I'm a little less than 60%, somewhere between 55 and 60% of the way into this book. Tella is like on this mission. She's trying to find out what the fallen star, I think I called him the fallen angel before, he's the fallen star, my bad. She's trying to find out what his weakness is. One of the things that Mistress Luck brings up, I think that when she brought this up, she was actually talking about Jax, and she was saying that like it's not safe to tempt a fate to love you, because fates are not capable of love, because immortals are not capable of love. They only know how to be like obsessive and like possessive and have lust and all that kind of stuff, but like love is just not a feature or character trait that they like have or know how to do. And so because of their obsession and things like that, it could drive them kind of like mad, like drive them to do like mad things, which could include killing you. So it's very dangerous to tempt a fate to love you. A fate's weakness and an immortal's weakness is love. If an immortal or a fate falls in love, it makes them mortal. For some reason, love makes them mortal, and if they stay in love too long, and they stay mortal too long, the change becomes permanent and they lose their immortality, which is why love is the fallen star's greatest weakness, and it is also Legend's greatest weakness. Jax told Tella that there's a book in the Immortal Library that might have the fallen star's weakness, because it tells you a person's like whole like life history or something. But you need a drop of the fallen star's blood in order for it to work, and so trying to acquire a drop of his blood could be dangerous, so they were like, okay, maybe not, let's not do that. So the next best option is to go to one of the fated places. The place that they want to go to is called like the Vanished Market. And apparently at the Vanished Market, there's like a stall that's owned by these two sisters where they sell or trade secrets. You have to give them a secret, obviously, for them to give you a secret. So chances are whatever the secret is that they're going to ask of you as payment is probably going to be something that you don't really want to reveal. So she has to be prepared for that. So there's fated places like the Vanished Market, but there's also fated objects. The next big thing that happened is Scarlett was kidnapped. She wanted to call off the whole competition thing because she pretty much decided that Julian is the one that she wants to be with. So she was on her way to go tell Count Nicholas this information, and as she was on her way to go find him to tell him this, she was abducted, which is most unfortunate. And it turns out the person that is behind her abduction is her father. We'll get to that in a second. Tella and Julian, when they went looking for Scarlett after she was like kidnapped, and they knew or thought or whatever that she was supposed to be meeting up with Nicholas, so they went to his house. And when they got there, things just didn't look right. Turns out they found Nicholas's dead body. That was a big yikes moment. Now back to Scarlett and her daddy. So we met the father of the girls in the first book. We know how that turned out. If you don't know how that whole story played out, go back and watch the vlogs before this one. But we got rid of the dad. So imagine my surprise when it turns out that he's the one that kidnapped Scarlett. Except he's not, because we now have learned that Scarlett's father is not that mean child abusing man that we met in the first book. It is actually, wait for it, the fallen star. Yes, that is right, you heard me correct. The fallen star is Scarlett's dad. She isn't a fate because fates aren't born, they're created, but she can be turned into a fate because her father is a fate. So that I don't forget, one of the things that also happens is Legend tells Tella that he wants to make her immortal. And she does not like the idea of becoming immortal. And now, especially that she knows that immortals can never feel love or experience love, she definitely doesn't want to be immortal. Anyway, back to Scarlett. So we find out that the whole thing where she can like see emotions as colors and stuff is part of her powers as like a potential fate. Right now she can just see the emotions as colors, but her father is hoping to be able to help her and train her to develop her powers to the point where she can control emotions altogether. So Tella went to the Vanished Market to get the secret. The sisters tell her that there is something that they can give her. They won't tell her what it is, but they give her this box. And they tell her that whatever is inside the box should be able to help her like defeat him or like take him down or kill him or whatever. In exchange for whatever is in this box, she has to promise to give them a secret. But it's not one of her secrets. It's a secret that belongs to, wait for it, her daughter, which is someone that doesn't even exist yet. So apparently in the future, Tella is going to have a daughter. They want her, before her daughter's 17th birthday, to return back to them and tell them or reveal to them what her daughter's like deepest, darkest secret is. I guess it's some kind of secret about what her weakness is, because her daughter is supposed to be like special or powerful or something. She's kind of being put in a similar position that her mother was put in, because her mother was put in a situation where she had to bargain with something that did not belong to her. I think we find this out in the second book, where she basically bargained Tella, and she agrees to the terms. One thing that she wanted to know was she wanted to know who the daddy was going to be, who the baby daddy, and the sisters would not tell her. She said that they were not allowed to reveal that information to her. And of course, while she's having this whole interaction with the sisters, Legend is there, and Legend is like, well, who else would the father be? Like, obviously it's me. What he doesn't know is that Tella has a little something going on. Like, she's in a little bit of a love triangle between Jax and Legend. So she almost got herself caught up in that moment, and the sisters covered for her. But yeah, that is the update. That is the recap. That is the update. I'm still very much interested in seeing where this story is going to go. I will check in with you guys once I have read a little bit more. And yeah, that's it for now. Back with another update. So this is probably going to be the second to last update because I'm about 85% of the way into this story, so very close to being finished. I could have just waited until I finished, but then it would have been like a much longer update because I'm sure a bunch of stuff is going to happen at the end of this book. They then opened up the box that they got from the sisters at the Vanished Market, and when they opened up the box, it was a note in it that said that the fallen star was mortal or like human once, briefly, just before he was betrayed by the only human that he ever loved, which would be their mother. We found out the identity of Legend. We found out that Dante was Legend, but I guess that information was never carried over to Jax, and so Jax is still in the dark, and I didn't realize that he was still oblivious to this information. So he still wants to know Legend's identity. We also learned from Charlotte's POV that the fallen star, he has purposefully like let the fates kind of run wild, run rampant in the town and kind of torment the town. I don't know if I said this at any point. I'm assuming that maybe I mentioned this in the beginning updates, but Legend died in the very beginning. I don't even remember how he died, but he died some kind of way. Someone killed him or something, but he's obviously he's back now. But it was like a big thing when he died. The town was like, oh no, like not Prince Dante, not you know, our emperor to be. And so the fallen star is now kind of trying to take that spot. And he's hoping that with the fates running rampant and causing all this chaos, he will basically be the savior and the townspeople will be like happy for him to take over as emperor. Jax finally figures out that Dante is Legend because this is when he sees him for the first time, so now he knows. When the witch Esmeralda created Legend, she took half of the fate's powers and gave it to Legend, and that's how Legend has powers in the first place. So Jax basically wants the other half of his powers back, and so the way that he's going to get that is by manipulating Legend, torturing Tella, and being like, if you don't give me back my powers, I'm going to kill this girl. And so Legend agrees. The agreement that they make is that if he gives Jax his powers back, then Jax will not use his powers to hurt Legend or Tella. So the next cool thing that stood out is that we actually got to use the map that is in the front of this book. This is the map that is in the front of the book. It's basically a map of like the land that they live in. They're like looking at the map and following it, and like we get to see a copy of like what they're looking at. Theirs is animated, and so it's like doing different things and things are appearing and stuff like that. Obviously this is not animated, but it's still kind of cool even still. I loved the description of this library, so I'm gonna read like a little like section that talks about like what the library looked like because it was really cool. There was a broken spine castle, an unread river, a ravine of ripped pages, a poetry valley, a set of novel mountains. There were bookish rhinos, papier-mâché elephants, and very tall giraffes that milled about in an oddly peaceful silence. Books formed couches and chairs in one massive throne. A warning flash on the map: do not sit on the throne. Towards the beginning, when Tella watches her mother get killed by the fallen star and she's all grief-stricken, and Jax is like, I will take your grief away, and he does his little spell or like uses his magic or whatever, his powers to take away her grief. Part of that whole thing that he did was a like wedding ceremony thing, and so now they're married. It actually created an immortal bond that would tie their souls together for eternal matrimony forever. Jax actually wanted Tella to be his like true love, but because she's in love with Legend, I guess Jax is like hurt by this, and so I guess he's willing to tell her what she has to do to sever this bond that he tricked her into in the first place. And apparently the way to do that is to like stab him or something. Then we fast forward. Tella told Legend that she loves him, and she asked him to make her immortal, but he said no, which is actually pretty interesting because in the beginning, he was the one like basically begging to turn her immortal, and she said no, and now she wants to be immortal and he's saying no. Then we switch back over to Charlotte. Charlotte is talking to the fallen star, and he's telling her that he actually offered to turn their mother immortal. Once she gave birth, he was going to make her immortal. But before he had a chance to do that, she had used the deck of destiny to like see the future or see something, and she found out that he's like a bad guy, and so she betrayed him before he had a chance to make her immortal. He tells Scarlett that it's time for her to control her powers. It's time for her to like level up and be able to control her powers, or master her powers enough to be able to control people's emotions. He wants her to turn Julian's love for her into hate. Now I think she has figured out like the secret to be able to do it. She starts doing it. It's like this super painful, dramatic experience. And then in the middle of her doing it, she changes her mind and she's like, no, I'm not going to do this. She says that she will master her powers, but she said that she will not do it on Julian. And Julian has to be let go in order for her to like work with the Fallen Star and master her powers. Now, the Fallen Star does agree to the terms of this deal, but he tells Scarlett that if you don't make good on this, he will basically kill everybody that she cares about. So, that's as far as I've gotten. I don't know what's going to happen between now and the end of this book. There's about, 15% left, and I know how fantasy books tend to be, where they like to dump all the action at the very end. I don't feel like we have enough time to resolve all these things, so I'm very interested to see what is going to happen in the last 15% of this, and if it's going to resolve in a way that makes sense and is satisfying, or if it's going to feel like it was rushed, or if there are going to be things that are still unresolved. I don't know, but that is what we are going to jump into during this last section of reading. So let's jump back into it. So I'm here to talk about my final thoughts, also give you guys kind of like a recap of what this last, 15% was, the things that happened, and my final thoughts. The writing, like the dialogue, the dynamics between some of the characters and stuff, it reminds me a lot of The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina on Netflix. Something about these characters, it just reminds me, I could absolutely see the characters from Sabrina like playing the characters in this book, but I could absolutely see like Caliban as Jax. I could see Harvey as like Julian, the guy that played Satan in Sabrina. I could see him being Gabriel. Like I could just match up these characters so well. The tone and the atmosphere of the show, I feel like matches the tone and the atmosphere of this book. So I would hope that the same folks that worked on that show, if this ever were to get adapted, it's the same people, because I feel like that would be perfect. So some of the things that we learn in this last 15% of this book, now what we've learned is that if you do kill an immortal, like you make them mortal or whatever, their magic, even though they can be killed, their magic cannot be killed. If a fate or someone that is immortal and has magic dies, their magic has to be turned into an object, because magic cannot die. That's the moral of the story. Now to do a recap of the things, the important things, the highlights of what happens. So they come up with this plan, and I knew this was coming. I freaking knew this was coming. So I feel very validated in the fact that I saw this coming a mile away. They have been dropping not even hints. They have been dropping anvils throughout these books to let you know how much Scarlett looks like their mother. Scarlett is going to go back in time. She's going to use the fate, the assassin fate, because he can time travel. He's going to take her back in time. She is going to steal the dress and then go back to the present timeline and pretend to be her mother. And the whole idea is that because the assassin can travel through time, she's going to pretend like the assassin went back in time and got Paloma from that timeline or whatever and brought her to the present. Gabriel will fall in love all over again. He'll be vulnerable, and then Tella will be able to kill him. Paloma and Gabriel were like in love and all that kind of stuff or whatever, and she was like gonna marry him or something, but then she found out that he was a fate and that he was a bad guy, and so she betrayed him, and she's the one that like put them in the deck of destiny or whatever. We learned this earlier. I'm pretty sure I talked about this in an earlier clip. So now we're finding out that the way that she found out all of this was because Scarlett was the one that told her. And I do love a good full circle moment, especially in time travel like type of stories. I absolutely love that, where it's like, oh, this is one of the reasons why Insidious 2 was one of my favorite horror movies, but that's not what this video is about, so we're not going to get into that. Her mother gives her the dress, also gives her her knife, and her mother disappears. And then something that I really appreciated, I really like this part. There's a moment where Scarlett, before she goes back to the present, there's a moment where she kind of reflects on all of this. I feel like for so long, these books have been basically like shitting on Paloma and like making her seem like she's just this terrible mother and all this and that. And so I like the fact that Scarlett has this moment where she can be more understanding and sympathetic and empathetic with her mother's situation and being like, you know what, like she was just a scared pregnant girl who like didn't know what to do and just like wanted to do her best, did the best she could given the cards that she was dealt. Metaphorically speaking, not like the literal deck of destiny cards. But yeah, like she just had a little more empathy for her mom. She's like, maybe she wasn't such a bad person after all. And so I really like that moment because I think oftentimes kids underestimate their parents and they don't understand the kind of things that the kind of decisions that their parents have to make. I appreciate that in a YA story, that is something that this author decided to include. Anyway, he thinks that she's Paloma. He starts falling in love. And then something happened. And he was about to attack Tella, like Gabriel was about to attack Tella. Scarlett like jumped in front of Tella so that his attack like would hit her instead. And then Scarlett blows her cover. So he figures out that she's not Paloma. And then they have like this heart-to-heart moment. She's like, this is not what she will want for you, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, you know what? You're right. I've seen the error of my ways. Tella does manage to stab him or something. Like she kills him some kind of way. And so like he's dying. He's like, oh no, I'm dying. And so he puts his magic into, I think he put it in the knife that Scarlett got from her mother when she traveled back in time. So then you fast forward and then there's this moment between Tella and Legend where he's like trying to get her back because, you know, she's under this spell thing that Jax did to her to make her love him. And so then Legend tells her that he loves her and he doesn't care if he loses his immortality because it's worth it because she's his forever, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And him telling her that he loves her apparently broke whatever the curse or spell thing is that Jax put on her to make her love him. Scarlett is now going to be the new empress, so they are getting ready for her coronation. Another thing that I didn't quite realize until the end of the story is that apparently somewhere along the way it was said, or at the very least it was suspected, that Paloma was the daughter of the Empress Elentine. I did not realize, I guess I missed that somewhere along the way, so just in case you missed it too, there you go. But that would explain why Scarlett is now taking over as Empress. It also would explain why Gabriel thought that he was going to take over as Emperor. But yeah, I guess that whole bloodline thing makes sense. So just in case you missed that, well, there you go. The Fates are all ageless. It was also said that the Fates left and they went to the Northern Kingdom. I don't really know what that means, but I'm pretty sure, from what I've heard anyway from other people, that the Once Upon a Broken Heart series is following like more about like the Fates and Jax and stuff. So maybe we'll get to learn more about that in the spinoff series. And I think one of the last things that happens is Tella writes a letter to Legend, cutesy like love letter. And I really liked that. I didn't like the letter itself. I mean, it was fine. Like, I didn't really care. But I liked the fact that the book ended with a letter to Legend because I loved, again, another full circle moment. I love the fact that the series ended the same way that it started because the series originally started with a bunch of letters being written to Legend from the girls. And yeah, that's the end of the story. It's easily a 4-star series for sure. And I definitely want to continue the series and read the Once Upon a Broken Heart books, so I definitely want to jump over to that in 2025. But yeah, this was a good time. I'm glad that I read this. It is, what day is it? Today's the 30th of December. So I definitely wanted to finish this before the year ended. Overall, like I said, 4-star series, really enjoyed, highly recommend. If you like, you know, whimsical, magical, YA stuff like that, with a little bit of like angst and drama and romance and all that kind of stuff. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this like abridged, like Cliff Notes version of this series. Hopefully you guys found this beneficial, especially if you're like me and you wanted to jump into the Once Upon a Broken Heart books, but felt like you needed to read these first. Now you don't have to read these because I basically told you what happens in them, so save you some time. Hopefully you find that beneficial. If you made it this far into the video, drop the yellow heart emoji down below in the comments. And if you have watched all 3 videos and made it this far into this one, then drop the like deck of cards emoji down below in the comments as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.